So the longer I've been in remodeling, the more I realize that the success doesn't come from sticking to just one formula. Sure, look, there's principles that apply to almost every job, right? Things that are true across the board. But every client is unique. Every house is a little different. Every kitchen brings its own special twist. Now, in psychology, there's a concept called the ideographic versus the nomothetic approach. And what that means is there's similarities and there's differences at the same time, right? So like for us, it's all about recognizing that, yes, while I'm a guy doing remodeling here and you're a guy doing remodeling there, we each have some similarities and we have differences. You have your background, right? You have how you were raised. You have the way that you think, your skill set and your circumstances that you deal with, and I have the ones that I'm dealing with. So while we're different, we're the same, but we have to understand how all that plays together. It's not as cookie cutter as people would like to think all the time. It's not necessarily black and white. It's more what I found is a sea of gray. So while, yes, every project is built on a foundation of, let's say, best practices, the real magic in the success and why some guys are more profitable than others, because some people learn quicker how to adapt each of the particularities to fit their situation best. They understand their team, they understand their clients, they understand their market. All right. So this episode is all about me discussing how I found the best way to fit all the pieces together so that I could provide profitable kitchen projects for my company. Okay? And it starts with just what I would say changing the way you go about estimating and just being smarter, for lack of a better word, and having a real good process. We're going to get into that.
Hello, this is the Hack Hour Podcast, a show where it's all about helping real, everyday, hard-working remodelers learn the secrets to having it all in life and business. And now, here's your host, Mike Menges.
So welcome to the Hack Hour Podcast, where remodelers and contractors get the tools to make every job profitable. I'm Mike Menges. I'm a longtime remodeler, and I'm the founder of the Remodeling Academy. And look, today we're tackling a big topic. It's estimating the kitchen remodeling costs and how you can do it like a pro. So have you ever underbid a kitchen and watched your profits vanish? I have. Have you ever had a client like ghost you because your numbers seemed way off? Had that happen as well. Have you seen your other remodelers lose thousands of dollars just 3 weeks into the job because they made some assumptions or mistakes? I've done that as well, right? Now look, I don't say all this to scare you, so I would say don't worry, because today we're going to dive into what I would say is the art and the science of estimating kitchen remodels, all right? I'm going to help break down some different proven methods so that you have different ways to consider pricing kitchen remodels. And specifically, we're going to look at like the kitchen cabinet installation for a part here. And this way you can just bid proper, right? So you can win jobs, keep the cash flowing, and have actual profit at the end of the day. Okay, so the key that I've found, the proven way over the years for me has been to always start any kitchen remodeling project with a proper, detailed design plan of some sort before doing the actual estimate or the bid proposal or the cost to build, right? You want to make sure that you have an actual blueprint. That way you can make your numbers bulletproof. Now, what I find very interesting about residential remodeling that is different from, say, commercial. In commercial, almost always you're being presented with a set of plans to work off of, okay? Day in and day out, every commercial job we did, the client had a set of plans. We come out and they would accept and solicit bids based off of that. Now, in the residential world, so many homeowners want to skip that stage, and so many remodelers seem to be just as willing to skip the planning stage. And that's where all the breakdown and the problems happen. And what I found interesting was early on, I had come across a gentleman who was very versed in commercial work. He had a business where he was installing security camera systems, and he always worked off of a set of plans for any commercial property he was doing. So when he wanted to remodel his home in the city, he went and got a proper set of plans first, then contacted several of us remodelers to come out and give him a price based off of his plans. Man, was that eye-opening. And it was so easy to give a proper price because he had plans. So, let me fast forward. What I found was, here I am, I'm running around as a new contractor. Homeowner calls up and says, "Hey, Mike, heard you do remodeling." "Yeah, that's what I do." "Great. Mike, we want a new kitchen." "Oh, that's awesome. I do new kitchens." "Great. Mike, can you come out and give us a price for free?" "Yeah, let me jump right out and drive out there now." So, right? Then this is how it worked. Now, I'm excited because I think I'm getting the job because they called me. They're excited because they think they're just getting another price. What works better is when the client calls you and they say, "Hey, we're looking to have a kitchen, and if you do kitchens, awesome." Now, before you jump to racing out, you have, and this is where it gets a little challenging for guys, what I had to learn how to do was shift my mindset and my business practice to where over the phone, we go through what I like to call the weed the lead process. And what I'm doing is determining, just because someone calls me and wants me to potentially do work doesn't mean that I have to. Doesn't mean that they're my client or the right type of client. So now I'm going to weed the lead. I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to see if this is the type of person I want to work with. Now, what I do while I'm talking to them over the phone is I'm understanding what they want, and then I'm helping persuade in a way. I'm helping educate them that the best way to go about getting that kitchen price that you want for the remodel is make sure you have a design first. Have you hired someone to give you a design? No. Okay, let's talk about how we could get you a design first, because once we have a proper design, then we can get you a proper cost to build or a proper bid proposal. I like to get away from the whole word of estimate in the first place because it is confusing and everyone thinks that free always goes with estimate. So the sooner you can get rid of the word estimate, you can usually get rid of the word free. All right, so how do we do all this? And what do we do once we get them to the place where now we actually have to come up with the estimate, right? So ideally, you work with the customer to get to a place where you're going to get a design done, and that's usually for paid. Okay, now let's assume you have that and the customer's ready to get pricing for what it's going to cost to have their kitchen done. And let's break it down and just for the most part look at the kitchen cabinet part. Okay, so how do we get, as a remodeler, how do I make sure that I'm estimating this properly for my business? How do I make sure I'm pricing it properly so when I present it to the client, it works? These are some different ways, and I will share with you what I liked and didn't like about each of them. So one of the methods for coming up with a kitchen cabinet installation cost is a lot of guys will say, I just charge per linear foot. Okay. This is a very traditional method, and it involves calculating the cost based on the total linear footage of cabinetry that is going to be installed at a property, right? So for instance, what I have seen over the years is for stock cabinets, the cost may range anywhere from like $60 to $200 per linear foot. Okay. Now, some guys, let's say the customer wants a semi-custom cabinetry. Well, you may now charge anywhere from like $100 to $650. And yes, there's variables. What are you putting inside the cabinet? Are you having to install like wire baskets and like the kitchen-made hideable bracketry and shelving? I don't know what you're doing, right? All these things can add up and impact it. Now, some of you guys work with custom cabinetry, whether you build it and you're a cabinet maker or you install for one, right? Those linear foot costs, it could be like $1,200 per linear foot. So where I'm going with this is there are variables, and you just have to start understanding what is your niche, what are you doing, or what is the client looking for that you're going to be doing. And there are variables. All right. Let's say that you decide, hey, we're going to charge based on a per cabinet fee, right? How many boxes we're putting in, that's what we're going to charge, because we want to keep it simple. I've seen guys do this, and this method can work when a lot of the other variables are taken out. And what I mean is when you're just putting a box here, putting a box there, and you know exactly how many boxes you're putting in. And if you do the similar style kitchen over and over again, let's say it has one pantry, it has one large sink base, it has a drawer base, it's got a couple small base cabinets, it's got like a corner cabinet for the wall, it's got a couple other wall cabinets, and maybe it's always a built-in refrigerator. So now you can understand that on average, this is what is inside of every kitchen we do. Because at the end of the day, if you're just putting in like 4 base cabinets and then it's an open shelf wall setup where there's only like one cabinet at each end and a couple shelves, that cost per cabinet installation would be a lot less than the person who has double pantries, right? The refrigerator has panels that are being installed. The dishwasher's getting a panel that's being installed. So you really have to understand the style of kitchen, in my opinion, that you tend to do. Then you can come up with the per cabinet, because there's a variable, right? That 12-inch wall cabinet is a lot easier to install than that double pantry with the 6 roll-out drawers. Okay, now the way that we liked to price our jobs was more what we would use is called the detailed layout, right? So now either we're doing the design using some software or someone else is doing the design, and we are then pricing it based off of a comprehensive kitchen layout, right? And we know all the things up front. We know where everything's going, what size it is, and the finishes, and the features and the extras, and we're getting the detail of the molding, right? Are we doing the light bar? Is it a 2-piece built up crown, right? How many filler strips? All the things. So that is the method I liked. Now, it's also important to understand your client each time, because you want to understand, are we doing like the basics? Are we doing like a mid-range style remodel, or are we doing a high-end, right? And that sounds like it should be a given, but for some guys, they forget that this all plays a role. So you do want to understand where the client falls within the quality of the products that they're choosing. All right. And at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to their budget, their preferences, and how the house is being used, right? Just because someone has money, if this is an investment property, it could go either way. It might be a high-end house that they get a lot of money for because they rent it to like an Airbnb type setup, or they do use it for traveling nurses and they want everything to be just perfect. Or it could be somebody who's like, nah, I just need the basics in there and that's it, right? So you just don't know. Now, what we found worked best for us is having historical data that we could use to influence our estimating process. And I give you an example. There was a gentleman, he owned a high-rise in my area, and he had 200 units. And he had gotten, it was time for him to remodel all 200 units. So this was his plan. He wanted to do 10 kitchens at a time, because that was like sort of like a section of the floor, and he wanted us to come in and he was going to have us do 10 kitchens and then move on and do another 10 kitchens. And what we found was, man, once you do the first 10, you really know exactly what your costs are for all the others, because now you've seen what a one unit apartment kitchen looks like. You've also seen what the suite kitchen looks like, right? And then you just rinse and repeat. So having historical data helps. Also, I found that, for instance, we did a lot of kitchens in the city, 1920 style brick homes, and you start learning the best way to install the cabinetry in these houses is this way, right? Whereas if you're doing a lot of like ranchers that were built in the 70s, the best way to go about doing those is this way. And you would have good data to show you so that where I'm going with this is your future estimates get more accurate because you base it off of the experience you've had from your previous ones. Okay, now let's talk about incorporating technology into estimating. A lot of opinions here, and I've seen various things over the years. So estimating software can help for sure. It streamlines things and it helps take repetitive tasks out. Now, at the end of the day, just because you go and buy estimating software doesn't mean it's going to solve all of your problems tomorrow, because the input that you put in is going to affect the output that you get out, right? So where I'm going with this is you have to make sure that you understand and are putting in very accurate data into the system so that you get out very accurate data. If you're just guessing, then it's not going to work so well. Now, I have seen different software work well, and I've seen it work in different situations, even for my own situation. What I found worked best for me over time was a custom spreadsheet that we built. It can work either as Excel or in Google Sheets. Some guys really prefer a standard estimating software package that they have, and then they learn to build some defaults in there so that they can get similar style results over and over again. Now, a couple big ones out there that I've seen a lot of guys like is Co-Construct, Builder Trend, Job Tread, Clear Estimates, Exact Remodel, Exactimate, right? And there's differences for all of these. What other one was Remodel Max? And some of these change names and one gets bought out by the other. So years ago, in fact, Clear Estimates was something else, and I can't remember the name at the moment. I have a book somewhere. I used that one a lot in the beginning. It helped me build some templates to work off of, and it helped show me the importance of having detailed estimates. So if you do a lot of insurance work, you want a very detailed estimate, right, that describes all the various steps that you're doing so you can provide that to the insurance agents, and that would help win you jobs. For the average homeowner, you don't always need all of that. At one time, I was a big fan of Builder Trend. I'm seeing a shift. It seems like Builder Trend has gotten, it offers a whole lot more. It's much more robust. And if you're a smaller remodeler, I'm not so sure that's the best one to go with these days. It just depends. But I did like how Builder Trend could help keep everything in one system for you. Although what I also noticed was I didn't use Builder Trend's estimating software specifically, but I would put an estimate into Builder Trend, right? So there's variables, and you just have to figure out what's going to work best for you. The recent one that's out there is handoff.ai, and what I did there was I took that and I went and grabbed several kitchens that we had bid recently and performed. And I was like, let me see how accurate what I thought it was going to cost was based off of what it did cost. And let me put the scope of work into Handoff AI and get its price. And I got various results. I wouldn't say it was any more accurate or less accurate than doing it with your own spreadsheet. What it does help is if you don't have any basis, it does give you some good information back of verbiage to put into estimating. Okay, so where I'm going with this at the end of the day is it's going to depend. That's the answer. What works best for you, how your mind thinks, what results that you want. Now, at the end of the day, it's the presentation that matters the most, right? Because the tools, yes, they help automate, but really what you are doing is differentiating yourself. And what I found, the biggest thing I found was when I put together my first computer-generated software estimate, it had its own form. And when I handed that to a client, they looked at that and it was like there was no arguing, because that's what the computer said it was going to cost. It's not what I say it's going to cost. It's not what you say it's going to cost. Ma'am, I took what you wanted and I put it into the computer, and these are the results that I got. That's what it's going to cost. And it taught me a valuable lesson. the success for us with our process of determining cost was more about how we presented it and how we made it look than how we actually at times even came up with it. So I hope that makes sense to you. Your internal own database is going to be most important, and the way that you lay that information out and present it to the client is going to matter. Now, understand that all clients are different. I had some clients that wanted very detailed, other clients that would not want to waste more than 30 seconds. They just wanted to know the final number. They would say, Mike, that kitchen, did you make sure you remembered that we want this installed? I was like, yes. All right, and that includes that all in the cost? Perfect. They don't even want to look at the details. They just want to know that you included the detail in there. So understand that, that's how it rolls. All right, be flexible with your clients. Now, what are some other factors that can influence all these costs? At the end of the day, no matter how good your estimating system is, right, there's always going to be variables, and we just have to be aware of them, right? So I tend to find that the more that you can hone in your marketing message to where you're attracting similar clients and performing more of a consistent, similar style project over and over again, your costs become much more accurate, right? It's the reason why a guy who just installs gutters can just give you a price over the phone in a few minutes. It's because that's all he does is just puts in gutters. It's like, you want white, you want a K5, awesome. How many feet off the ground? Oh, it's 1 story. Here's my price per linear foot. How many drops am I doing, right? How many downspouts? Boom, here's my price. You can get to that place with kitchens when you start understanding what year was it built, what's the style of the house. Okay, are we moving things? Yes? No? Okay, so kitchen sink staying in the same place. All right, how's the floor? Is the subfloor okay? Are we keeping the existing floor? Perfect, right? Over time, you can get that way as well, but you have to ask a bunch of questions for a kitchen remodel that's a little more involved than it is for the guy who just installs the gutters. Does that make sense? I think so. All right, now, remember, at the end of the day, when it comes to kitchens, you want to understand the type of cabinetry that's going in. We've talked about that. Is it a stock cabinet that's readily available off the shelf? Is it an RTA? Are you building it? And they're going to be a little wonky. Is it a semi-custom that's coming from like a big distributor? Or is it a fully custom, that your local cabinet maker is doing? All right. There's benefits and obviously disadvantages to all of those. Now, countertops are a big deal, right? Because heavier countertops are going to require extra support and bracketing, whereas, something like a laminate would not. Understand that all that goes into how you're doing your estimates. And let's see, other things that come up in kitchens all the time is demolition, disposal. What are we doing? The things that we're taking out, where are they going? How are we handling? Lead paint becomes a big issue, especially if you work in areas of the country where you have a lot of older houses. You have to be cautious about how you're handling that for homeowners. And then there's also permits and inspections. Obviously, if you work inside of a major city, you're going to be more impacted than those of you that are out in the more rural areas where you've never even seen a permit or an inspector. All right. Change orders. Always be aware. Make sure you have a good change order process. That helps. I'm trying to think what else. Also, what we found, again, at the end of the day, you want to make sure you have a detailed scope of work. The more detailed, the better, right? I mean, it's the bedrock. The estimate is only as strong as the scope of work and the details. Ambiguity breeds conflict, confusion, and that's where profit starts leaking all the time. I can remember on more than one occasion in the beginning, I would have a homeowner convinced that we were supposed to do something in the project that wasn't written in the agreement. And what you would find after further investigation was the homeowner eventually would come to the realization, oh, I spoke to like 3 guys when I was getting the estimate for this kitchen. And one of the guys told me I should really do this, and I thought it was a great idea, and I really wanted that. And I forgot to tell you that I wanted that because I had talked to it with that other gentleman, but we didn't hire him. We hired you, and it never came up because I got confused because I met with 4 guys, right? That happens. So what I found worked best for us was when I have a detailed scope, I sit down and I ask the client specifically, have you talked to anyone else? Is there anything that was brought up at some other point in time with someone else that you wanted or you were thinking was going to be here, but it's not? Because I don't know that, right? Just ask the question. So it happens. All right. But again, if you have something that's detailed, you can say to the client, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I hear you. Yep, you said that you really wanted crown molding. However, we never discussed crown molding. It's not here. It's not in the scope. It's possible that you discussed it with someone else, but when you asked us for the price, it got overlooked. It wasn't brought up, whatever. We don't have it in here. And that is frustrating. And sorry that that happened, right? You should have been covered, but it happens. So anyway, just have everything listed out, and that'll eliminate a lot of the confusion. And before you start the job, you go over the list so that you can reference it back when the homeowner thinks something's missing. You say, well, remember, we did a pre-construction meeting and we went over the scope. Let's pull the scope out and look. And then we can figure out who is mistaken in the moment. Maybe you are. Maybe it's in the scope and you missed it. Maybe it's not in the scope. All right. Also, contingencies. The more you're in this business, the more you realize that you need to, a better way to educate the client is to say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, there's always something that none of us know about, right? And I would recommend that you have budgeted somewhere between 5 and 15% somewhere as a rainy day fund, because something may come up during the course of this remodel that impacts the cost of this remodel. And we have to understand how you're going to proceed if that happens, right? Now, you also may want to consider having allowances for certain things in your jobs when you're pricing out kitchens. We would use allowances sometimes because every now and then a client just wouldn't make a decision, and we didn't want to hold up the whole project for some, maybe like one particular item. Like maybe they just weren't sure on the exact this or that. I don't know. So maybe it's like a light fixture and you just, hey, we're going to give you an allowance. It's $500. And if you buy one that's $250, you'll get $250 back. If you buy one that's $1,000, you owe us $500. You know, just work with them. All right. But you have to have it written down in a way that you can go back and cross-check. And all right. At the end of the day, proactive client communication is always best. This happens a lot, especially for some of you guys. If you're the type that you start really early in the morning and you're done early in the afternoon, maybe because you coach a sport and you're at your kid's high school every day at like 3 o'clock, so you're off the job by 2:30. Well, the homeowner, they're not even getting home from work till 5, so a week could go by and they haven't really talked to you specifically because they're already out when you show up in the morning, and by the time they get home, you're already gone, and then you're doing your thing. So what we found was, if you want to make sure that you're having frequent communication, and text messaging and emailing is not suffice. Find a way to have some sort of a communication periodically with the client where you're either doing it in person or over the phone. Maybe that involves you catching them on their drive to or from work, or at a lunch break. You just have to work it out, and you have to make sure that you stick with it and say, Mr. and Ms. Smith, here's what we're going to do. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to talk at like 11:30. Just to touch base, I'm going to let you know what's going on, and we're going to gauge where the job's at and what's next, what's coming up. Okay. So I think this is pretty good for you guys all in all. At the end of the day, look, your price that you put out there, it's more than just a number, right? It's your commitment. It's the contract. It's this sales tool. It's like your brand that you're putting out there. And when you do it right, when you set proper expectations, you build trust, and that paves the way for more profitable projects and actually less stressful of a process, right? Yes, it takes time, but you can make it bulletproof. So again, at the end of the day, estimating is both an art and a science, and pricing jobs does require attention to the detail and some adaptability. And by you employing these methods and tools, you'll enhance your accuracy and client satisfaction, because that's what it's about. So stay tuned for our next episode, and we thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe, help this channel grow, and comment. What is it that we could help you with that we either have done that you need to hear more of, or something that maybe we haven't done, and you're like, hey, when are you going to talk about that? So reach out, and we'd love to be of assistance. Have an awesome day. And remembering, your remodeling success is ready for you. Question is, are you ready for it? Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Hack Hour podcast. It would be awesome if you would leave us a quick review on iTunes. To further your remodeling success, go to remodelingriches.com.